Hello, beautiful people. Take these off. No, I can't see now. Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to what is probably going to be episode 15 on the Range Rover restoration. And yes, beautiful missus, it is getting there and I am working hard on it. It's Sunday afternoon and I've been hard at it for at least the last 15 minutes. Anyway, so I hope you enjoy the video. I'm going to have a shave before I go home, I think. It's kind of itching now. Don't like facial growth. It's just laziness, I'm afraid. Right, so let me... hope you enjoy the video, really, rather than let me anything. Hope you enjoy the video. Feel free to comment, like, dislike, thumbs up, thumbs downs. I don't care. It's up to you. I just do this for shits and giggles. Well, actually, no, it's a job for me. But I do it. I make these videos partly because I think that the contents are going to help you guys. I hope they do. I hope it is worthwhile for you. Yeah, if you have any particular questions about these Range Rovers or the work I'm doing, then bung them in the comments. I'm pretty approachable. I don't swear all the time. Thank you. Sometimes when you're working on car projects, the only way to proceed forwards is to actually go backwards. So what I've done now is that the whole wing and scuttle and everything is now off the car. Might seem like a bit of a ball's ache, and it is. Make no mistake, it is a ball's ache. But if I'm going to get this thing lined up properly, I've had to extend these two holes. So there's that hole there at the front, and that one there. I've had to extend because they don't quite reach. I know I've trapped that earth wire. Don't worry about it. This wing's going to come off many more times. Yeah. So I've done that, and now I've got a better gap at this end. It's something I can work with. Yeah, very similar to the other side. So what I need to do now is to nip this wing into place in roughly that position. I've started to straighten this top edge out. You see it's kind of leaning out at the top there. I've just started to straighten that out because it's probably going to affect the alignment with the bonnet when it all goes back together again. I need to put the guide rail back on. I took the guide rail off because I couldn't adjust it far enough. So again, I may need to elongate some of these holes so that I can put this bracket back in line with the wing. I didn't have any of this trouble with the other side. And I think this is all down to the brand spanking new wing rather than a used old stock wing. I can't think of any other reason. I've had no other problems on this side. It all just went together. The gaps are perfect. I've got enough alignment and enough adjustment on this. There was no issue. I've noticed this one kind of leans out a tiny bit as well, so perhaps I'll leave this one where it is because it's about the same. So now I have adjusted that. I'm going to bolt this wing back up again. You can see the shadows down the side are still pretty good. It's only roughly in place at the moment. There's a kind of a plate at the bottom that's just holding it there. I need to... Well, that seems to have been an hour and a half quite well spent. So the front wing and everything is all back on now. It's back in place. I've got a bigger gap down this edge here. The wing now... Because I told you, as soon as I start pissing around with this, then that won't fit. So basically what I need to do is to draw the door on its hinge out a tiny bit. It's only 3 Allen key bolts. I probably need to draw the bottom of the door. I've left it a little bit flexible, so I've got some give on it. It's not a huge amount it needs to come out by. It just needs to pivot on its hinges. This side, again, while it was perfect, it's adequate now. So again, the reflections are working, but there's a bigger gap here than I'm kind of working with. I anticipate it's possible that when I put the deck panel back on again, it's gone a little bit more that way than this way. However, these two fellas now are equidistant. So the front bit, although it should be at the back of this recess, it's the same on both sides. I didn't want to pull the deck panel any further forwards because it will just make this gap here laughable. And I don't want to get that gap any bigger because I can't close it up because the bolts on the edge of the door and so forth and the frame. The door just doesn't want it. The door is no way is the door going to move any further forwards. But that gap, although it looks gargantuan, ain't too bad. That was nicer. I could potentially take a shim out, but then that is so damn close there that I don't want it. It's not going to happen. I think it gets to a point where you've got to stop fiddling with these things and just get on with it. So, that looks all right, doesn't it? I think so. That was an hour and a half, well, I suppose about 2.5 hours of messing about with that to get it right. But next time I do this, I'll know, won't I? So you can see the lines aren't perfect as I go down the side of the car, but they're not bad. There's a big dent on the door there, which is irritating. I don't know how that happened. I don't think it's a stress-related dent because I've undone all the nuts and everything. It didn't pop back out again, but Mr. Dent Man's going to have to fix that. The other thing that I've noticed is that this wing, it sits maybe 0.5 centimetre forwards, and that one is on the edge. So again, I think it's a difference between these panels. Now I know the chassis is square, so I don't really have an issue with this. And I know that this wing more or less fits at exactly the same place on the rear edge as that one does. Measured it all up. Injury today. Car's drawn blood again. I was just thumping this into a rearward position. I caught my finger on that there. The reason I've not caught my finger on it before is because there's actually a weather strip that goes along there. Nice bit of reproduction stuff down here. Because it's not made out of rubber, it's made out of a nylon material. It's actually a pretty good fix. Quite happy with that. Obviously the grille goes over the outside of it, and the idea is between the grille and this front cross member, or this front body member around the radiator, there's no air loss. So when the car's driving forwards, the air goes through the grille and is channeled straight into the radiator. It's like a fan shroud, I guess. Quite a nice bit of kit though. Wasn't that expensive either. Right. Marvellous lump of metal. This marvellous lump of metal is the rear passenger footwell. As you can see, it really has seen better days. It's not in great shape, is it? I mean, what's there is all right. Middle section, so basically you've got holes here. I don't know why that's holed through, because it's not. I might try and just plug that. And if I cut around this, I can remake that section up fairly easily. This bit over here just needs cutting off. Similarly, it's something previous owners welded on. I'll cut around that, cut around this panel here. There's another hole there that probably could do with a bit of a plug. Let's see if I can get this thing looking a bit better. What I've done, I've measured the thickness of the steel. Get one of these things. It's a drill gauge, and what you can do is it's got the gauges on one side, wire gauge. This is not a drill gauge, it's a wire gauge, and it's got the imperial settings on the other. So it's quite neat. So all you really do is you just find the slot that goes into, and I know it's 18 gauge already, so there it goes on nicely. Find myself some sheet steel, 18 gauge. Then what I've done, I've cut out the piece that I'm going to repair. Now normally I would cut out a sheet of steel, put it over the top, clamp it, cut between the two, and then butt weld it. But I need to press a ridge into this one. So what I've done, I've cut it slightly oversized, because I don't know how much this thing's going to shrink or stretch. It's going to shrink really as I put this ridge in. So what I've done then is, using a pencil, I have marked around the outside. There we are, like that. So it looks like that. And then using my steel rule, I have marked out the boundaries of the ridge. So I know roughly where the ridge needs to go, and that's what those markings are on there. So now I need to work on making that ridge. Time to get the swaging machine out. There's Tammy horse up there, standing looking over the gate, desperately waiting for her hay. It's like a field full of grass, and she wants hay. Right there, Tony. I think it's Tam. No. Oh, bag. Oh, Stuart must be on his way up. She must have heard him. No, ears are up. For a reasonable amount of percussive maintenance, using various tools in the box, I've managed to get a half decent rib. I'll smooth some of these dimples out. Some of these dimples are because I was using the pointy end of that rather than the pointy end of that, which is much more effective. sandbag's quite good. Ultimately though, it's a case of popping a nice impact socket that matches roughly the profile, and then hitting with the nylon mallet on the edge of the steel to get it into roughly the right sort of shape. Now, what we've basically got here is that we've put the ridge in, and it's the right profile, and I'm happy enough with it. What we now need to do, because we've got a curve, we need to shrink along this edge. So I'm just going to shrink that edge slightly and see if it brings the panel back to flat again. Then I can put a step on this edge and weld the damn thing in. So that's pretty much how I want it. So I used like a stepped swage tool and adjusted the thickness until I was happy that it matched with the thickness on the plate here. So now it's a case of clamping it together. I'm going to butt weld this, so I need to cut through pretty much level all the way around, and then I'm going to butt weld it to the original floor. So bear in mind the floor's upside down at the moment. This is the bottom of the floor. That's the upper surface of the floor, and it goes like that. I mean, when it's all together, it will look a lot better. In fact, if anything, I've been measuring that flange. Oh, it'll do. For fuck's sake, I'm not working it anymore. It's alright though, isn't it? I am wondering if I should just cut the whole fucking end off this thing. Right, that's kind of done it, I think. I've done that whole corner. I'm going to put some seam sealer over this. It's quite common, I think, for people to go mad when cleaning up welds, especially when they're on something that's not going to be seen. I mean, if it was Bodywork, I wouldn't have gone quite so mad with a welder. But it's something that's not likely to be seen, so I've not gone nuts in taking these welds back. As soon as you start seeing something like that when you're sanding back, it means the metal's getting overheating as you're sanding it, which means that you're probably going through it. You want to basically want to avoid that, otherwise you're making the metal too thin. I've been over it with a centre punch, and I think I caught that one in time. Similarly with that one there, it's quite a big lump, and I think what's happened is there's so much weld on the other side that I've started to take out or started to thin this piece of metal rather than the weld or the joint itself. So I'm going to put some brush sealer over this. I need to check it out for fit first of all, cut the holes, the mounting holes. So I need to do, I think there's a couple on the end, one on the corner here. Yeah, it looks like I need to do one there and one about there on both ends. And then I can trim this thing and make sure it fits. Right, okay, today's task, main task, radiator, beautifully recoiled. Look at that, what a beaut. Recoiled by Viking radiators. Fantastic. Recoiled it for less money than a cheap Chinese plastic item available online from any retailer near you. So it's going to go in this space down here. Look at that. I'm going to get this thing up and running. I need to fit the belts. I need to fit the radiator, fill the radiator, and then I'm going to get this engine up and running and tune it. That's today's activity. That's all we're doing today. The only job. And then if I get time left over at the end of it, then I'm going to get on some other stuff. But on here, there's some things to cross off on the list. If I can find a pen. The Uncle Ian's been down here, so everything's moved. Right, diff oil's been done. Carb breather, fan belts, front bump stops I need to do, steering shafts, choke, set up carbs, throttle adjust, clutch bump stop, and HT lead clips, which I still haven't got down here, which I need to remember to bring down here. I have to write those in my book, because they're at home, and I keep forgetting to remember to bring them down with me. I basically go on to these screws here, and they hold the HT leads away from the manifolds. As you can see here, there might be a challenge here with keeping this away from the manifold. I shall engineer something that will stop it resting on there and melting, but big day, eh? I'm doing it no favours. Let me get the choke wide up. I'll get the choke wide up. just double check that we're getting a spark, and I'll come back to you in a moment. Yes, it's flooded. So that's why. These things can be a pain in the arse to start when they're flooded, but at least I know now that it's flooded. I think it's going to be a full throttle. Just check I've got. The other thing, of course, I could do is check I'm getting a spark. I'll just put the fucking spark plug back in again. So there's no need for that, Richard. Let's give it another go and see if it's any better. And I'll check the spark. Now the coil should be producing a spark. Oh, flash is working. The horrible rattling noise is the centre silencer. I think a baffle's loose in it, so guess where that's going? Brand bastard new. Right, ignition timing, dead easy. Cole's moving the distributor. I don't know if you can hear this because it's quite noisy. If they can't hear it, I'll voice over it. I've attached the sensor to number 1 cylinder and I've powered it up. And then if I power the strobe up now, you can see down there the 5 lines. I'm not getting close to my camera, but basically I want it at about 7, between 5 and 7 degrees, which is more or less where I found the sweet spot to be just by manually adjusting it. Next thing I need to work out is where this flipping water leak's coming from, which is irritating me. Good news is, it's coming from the top of the engine and not from a core plug. So it's down there, but it could well be coming from the front here. I don't know. I don't know where it's coming from. And the water level is going down in there. So I think what I'm going to do next is I'm going to fanny around and see if I can't get this thing running a little bit leaner. At the moment the carburetors haven't been balanced. Oh, one thing by the way, before you set the ignition timing, disconnect the vacuum advance. And you can see on this, because it's running at idle, there's no real vacuum advance anyway. So it's running about between 5 and 7. So between the second and the third marker is where I want it. You see my strobe is a bit inconsistent here. Could well be something to do with the running issues, could be my knackered strobe, I don't know. I've got a new set of HD leads to put on it, so that might be my very, very next trick. It seems to be running alright. That's the thing I'm worried about. That's not going to take any prisoners now, is it? So you've got to be careful. Got to be careful with these things. Let's see what the water leak's like.
Oh, it's pouring out.
So let's go and have a look now. Now it's doing that. I think it's going to be coming from the inlet manifold. I'm going to have to take the inlet manifold and have a look. And see also there's a core plug on the top gone there. There's a core plug on the inlet manifold gone. I suspect there's a core plug on the bottom of the inlet manifold that's gone as well. So I'm going to have to take the inlet manifold off in order to do that. That's a pain in the arse, but never mind, these things happen. You can see that core plug on the top leaking there. I'll tell you one thing we haven't done yet. What do you reckon? Was it worth a go? Oh, fuel light, come on. Right, let's have a look. Oh. I was thinking there was a big problem then. We're not in fucking... we're moving. We're moving under our own steam. Yay! Let's go back in again, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to... All my fucking tags are all blown away. This high-low range is not selected properly. It is now. I might need to just double check this high-low range, because what's happening is it's definitely going into... So I'm going to reverse now. That went. Oh, it's reverse gear needs to... The reverse gear wasn't selecting. Right, so that's working. Now it's going to low range. Yeah, that's working. And that's working. A first gear. And low range. It's got some go in first gear, I tell you, in low range. Fuel light's working, it's good. Right, what we really need to do is just keep this thing being warmed up. That's the transfer box whining there. Just a gear in the gearbox. I think the gearboxes do make a bit of noise. The choke light's on because I haven't actually attached the choke cable to it yet. I've got to get out of here. Ah, I'm out. Door closes nicer now. I better put some water in it. Manifold's off, only took 20 minutes. I say it's 10 bolts, a few hoses, nothing particularly serious. So underneath the manifold, I've not noticed anything particularly worrying. The weld has broken off that bolt here, but both these bolts are tight. I'm not seeing any obvious places for leaks. That core plug is bone dry, but I'm going to change it anyway. The only place I can think is that there's a water jacket that runs through the front of the inlet manifold here. And I'm just wondering if that's not seated properly. When it goes back together again, it's going to have some Hylamar around it. But bear in mind there was no real pressure on the system, and I couldn't really see around the front here that it was leaking. That gasket isn't a terribly good fit. That side's even worse. I wonder if it's just the inlet manifold gasket that's failed. And allow coolant to come from these front passages. Again, you're not seeing like there's been excessive amounts of coolant washing down the front there. This mess down here is because obviously when I pulled the hoses off there was a small amount of water in the water pump. So that's nothing to worry about there. I'm going to replace the inlet manifold gasket because it will be daft not to. I might see if I can get a composite gasket. if I can get a composite gasket, they tend to bed in a little bit nicer. I might even have a composite gasket. And then I'm going to replace that pipe because it's come off its mounting anyway, and that's not ideal. It's a bit crappy around that end, but again, I didn't notice it leaking from the hoses. The hose joints were all bone dry, but the water was certainly coming from somewhere underneath the inlet manifold. Alright, there was a gasket, but time for honesty. Look at the state of that. Make sure both gasket faces are clean of crap and smooth. Yeah, that's not going to have helped really, is it? I'm going to smooth that off. I'm going to get a flap disc on it and smooth him right down. Get rid of all the remains of old gasket and odds and shit around that. That's almost certainly the point where it was leaking from, which is good news. Bad news is I could have done that without taking the fucking inlet manifold off. This fella down here, this is the core plug that came out of the bottom, so that's the inside face. With the outside face, you can see a couple of places where I'd hammered it through and levered it out. Again, it ain't gone. It's getting pretty thin in places. I mean, there especially, you can see it's corroded quite badly, and that's not where I've been screwdrivering. So I don't think it would have been long before it had started pissing coolant out, but that wasn't the source of the leak. That probably was, though. I'll put a new gasket on that. That face up there, I'll double check that. That's all nice and tight. So this is the core plug off the top. It was very thin. I mean, it took absolutely no effort whatsoever to put the screwdriver through it when I was trying to extract it. That is there. That's there is the point of the original failure. You see, it's quite a large gap there. And inside was fairly full of gank. It's all serviceable. It's like earwax. Ugh! Bet it doesn't taste like earwax. Oh! Right, okay, what I'm gonna do now, because there's a lot of gloop in here, I'm gonna give it a proper good hosing through. Because I really don't want all this shit inside my new radiator. Most of it is soft crap. Forget I said earwax, that's revolting. And then the other core plug, and of course I need to get out, is this fella down here, which is behind the carb linkages, which are dead easy to get off. You just pull off like that. That one, like that. There we are, I'm going to get that one out as well. And then I need to go and get a pair more. Or fit this out with a new manifold. What I did with the pipe underneath, a very, very untidy weld, because some bastards used my welder and left the fucking gas on it. Not me, because I don't do that. But anyway, it's gone on, it's tight, and that is now not a source of leaks. I'm just about to go and give the Devon 4x4 place a call and see if he's got a composite gasket in stock, because I must admit, I don't know why I put a tin gasket on it. Probably because I don't have a composite gasket. In fact, I do have a composite gasket. I'm lying. There it is. That's a composite gasket. And while it's got kind of a tin in the middle, it's got extra material around the outsides there. This one has been kicking around the workshop for longer than I care to remember. In fact, it was probably on top of an engine just to protect the V from getting loads of crap in it. I'm not going to use that one, but I'm going to go and see if I can get another one of these. And then this chap is going back together again. Core plug on the